This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Kicking off hour 2 of the program as we welcome you back in here to Money Moves on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, alongside Jonathan Von Tobel, Stormy Buonantony with you. A couple great guests on deck this hour coming up in a few minutes. Carl Banks, Giants legend, 2-time Super Bowl champ. He's going to stop by. We'll talk through all things Jackson Dart and New York. And Dart apparently speaking to media right now. Brian Dable spoke moments ago. We'll talk about that. We'll also have Taylor Zarzour, who is going to not only break down the Ryder Cup with us because he works for SiriusXM PGA Tour Radio, but he is also the voice of the Tennessee Titans and calls college football for ESPN. So lots to get into there. Best bets at the end of the hour, and of course, East Coast bias. But let's start with the Giants a little bit because they're not making it easy on Jackson Dart for his first start. A 6.5-point dog at home to the Los Angeles Chargers and a defense that could be pretty decent.
Yeah, that's the thing that I'm wrestling with here. The Chargers' defense so far has been great. By EPA standards, the 7th best group in the National Football League. Having said that, whom amongst their opponents would you say is the best offense? The Chiefs, the Raiders, or the Broncos? Because those are all 3 groups that have not been particularly great. Now, it's not like the Giants or anything to write home about here, so it's probably just another one on the list of poor offenses that this team gets to face. But having said that, Jackson Dart does add a little something different, I think, to this offense. The skill set is a little similar, but I think they would ask him to run a little bit more. I think you can do some design stuff in that regard if they're going to change the way they're doing it.
That's something I wanted to ask Carl about,
right?
What he thought.
What the difference is going to be. I know that he has the capability of throwing the ball downfield, but will we see as many Russ Moonball type shots downfield, or will this change a little bit? Will it become a little bit more horizontal as opposed to vertical with the way they want to attack? So the changes and the intricacies for the offense are what I'm really looking forward to, and whether or not that can push a Chargers defense, which I don't want to say they haven't been tested, but this is, again, going to be another one of these lower-tiered opponents from an offensive efficiency standpoint. Giants coming in 26th in expected points added. How much realistically can a rookie quarterback improve that, even if he is hitting the ground running here?
And I mentioned 6.5. We are seeing some people pick it up, more 6 popping up across the board. Brian Dable in his media availability today said he didn't really want to get into his conversation with Dart about giving him the job. He said he'll keep that private, but he did say, we're going with Jackson. We're getting ready to play. It's my decision, and we're going with Jackson. So I think that's notable that he did put that exclamation point on it, that it's my decision.
Always good to have to say that, right? It's not the owner. It's me.
Well, but the hot seat question is very relevant. But I've said this whole time, and I'm curious if you agree with this too, when it comes to Brian Dable and Joe Schoen, the fact that they didn't let go of them after this past year and brought them in and let them draft a quarterback and see what they can do with this class. Like, I think even if this season goes badly, which it is off to an 0-3 start and they're making a quarterback change, that I don't think their jobs would be in jeopardy this year. Okay, so you disagree.
I think so.
But then why let them even draft anybody? Like, why let them carry over?
I mean, in danger of our next guest being upset with me, it's not like this has been the most well-run franchise to begin with, right? So the decision-making might not always make sense. But I'd also say this. I do wonder, this might be a question for Carl as well. If you're somebody in power in New York and you're evaluating Brian Dable, are you also looking a little bit out of your eye and going, Daniel Jones looks pretty good. And you couldn't really make that work. And yet here we are now again, and we're failing and we're losing games. And, my rookie quarterback here in the last, however many games he's going to start, hasn't not been, let's say Dart doesn't play well here in his rookie year. Just that, and again, we don't want to assume it, but just for the sake of this argument, is that not a little bit of a part of the evaluation?
I 100% think so.
So I think that might weigh into it too.
Okay. Fair points. I just don't know. I feel like you don't give the reins back over to them and let them draft a quarterback and trade up in the first round to do so if you're not going to give them the runway to see.
The same thing the Chicago Bears just did, though, right?
But that's idiotic.
But teams do it all the time.
Year after year after year, all you're doing is crushing somebody's development. So I hope that's not the case. And I am excited to say we do have Carl Banks on the line with us here again. Giants legend, 2-time Super Bowl champ. He's now calling games with Giants radio as an analyst. You can also catch him on SiriusXM, NFL Radio, and WFAN. And Carl, it seems like the goal to go was the last straw for Russell Wilson. Made fans call for Jackson Dart and Brian Dable officially making the switch. What did you make of the decision, and how should we expect him to be utilized?
Well, I think he is going to do fine. I think he gives them the dynamic that Russell could not, but they drafted him to get him ready for this moment. I mean, Russell, and for all intents and purposes, was to bring leadership and experience, but we all knew that at some point Jackson Dart's time was coming. And so this is it. Came sooner than later, but we knew it was coming. And, as coaches say, they don't draft players just to sit them on the bench. So he had a great camp. He's, constantly in the learning process, but having Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson there to kind of help his development has been a plus. So I think he's going to get out there, and he's a fearless kid to begin with. But I think, just from the scouting reports, people didn't think he would be ready. But, I mean, he's advanced pretty well in training camp. So ready or not, here we are.
Carl, you say he brings a dynamic that Russell does not. What's that dynamic, and how does this offense change with him under center?
Well, he sees the field differently. Listen, Russell has been a Hall of Famer his entire life, but he's challenged in terms of being able to see the middle of the field from the pocket. He's not a tall person. So he has to kind of move around a little bit, or, his passes are to the outside. But when you have Jackson Dart there, he can see the whole field from the pocket, and he's mobile, and he can move. So I think that's the dynamic that he brings. And he's more mobile. He's younger, so he moves around a lot better.
Yeah, I was curious about that. How much do you think that they're going to run him? Like, you're in the building, you're at practice, you see. What do you think they want to do with him?
I think they're gonna empty the clip with him. I think whatever his skill set is, they're going to utilize it. And the thing that we've seen the first 3 weeks of the season, 2 of those 3 games, the offense looked identical to what it did last year, bogged down. The Dallas game, they had some opportunities to go vertical. They did not have those opportunities against Steve Spagnuolo. And it was just, you couldn't get the type of plays that you wanted could work. Like, you had slants and you had, 3 verticals, but you have a quarterback who, he has to keep backing up in the pocket so he can see it. And that's not disrespectful to Russell, because I love him and he's a Hall of Famer, but this is what he's had to deal with his whole life. Right now they have a quarterback that they drafted to do the different dynamic, modern-day offensive things that you see in the league now, and that's Jackson Dart, right? He can see the field, he can move the pocket, and he's a dual-threat quarterback, and that's what I anticipate us seeing. Like, they have a lot of different things they can do with their receivers, and when you have a guy like Malik Neighbors who has 4 targets in a game, that just says you're not getting enough out of your offense with, the quarterback that you have.
Carl, we should ask you about the other side. There is another top-tier rookie that the Giants have. It's a young team, it looks like, in some key spots. Abdul Carter, what have you seen from him through the early going of the season?
I think Abdul Carter is learning as he goes, but he's been dynamic. He's just they don't have the luxury of just turning him loose the way that they would like to, because they've had injuries on the inside of their defense at the second level, and because he is the type of player who had played off ball early in his college career, they're using him there, but like, he's rushing the passer from inside. He's playing the run from inside, and he's doing a fairly good job. But I think once the offense gets going, you'll start to see more of what they can do. Brian Burns has been a problem for offenses. Kayvon Thibodeau as well. But then you add that third dynamic to their pass rush, because teams have to pass the ball. You'll start to see more of what he can do. But right now, their biggest challenge was, just trying to play a high-powered offense like Kansas City and keep them to field goals. And they did that, but they couldn't get the quarterback on the ground. I think, this week we should probably see Justin Herbert, a lot easier to tackle if they can get to him.
Yeah, Carl, we've only got about a minute left, but you're a defensive guy. I feel like all offseason we were told about how good this defense could be. Are you surprised with the start that they've had on that side of the ball?
I was disappointed the first two games because of the amount of yardage they gave up and just their inability to get off the field. The Dallas game is a game that they should have run away with, but every time they had Dallas on the hook, it was, let's just put it this way, they had 3 series the entire regulation that they didn't have a penalty that kept a drive alive for Dallas. Last week, I thought they played a really good game against a high-powered Kansas City offense that was looking to get back on track. And I expect it to be better this week and just stack on top of what they did last week.
Carl, we so appreciate your time and insight. Thank you for this. Have a great day.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Carl Banks, and again, doing a great job as the Giants radio analyst, SiriusXM, NFL Radio, WFAN, all of that. Abdul Carter, by the way, plus 230, your favorite for Defensive Rookie of the Year right now. And we talked yesterday about how much those odds have been cut down on Jackson Dart, even from yesterday to today when we were on the air and he was around plus 750. He's now 6-1, so continues to get cut down. We're going to step aside. When we come back, though, rolling along here on Money Moves, it is time for a little fun with some West Coast bias, because some West Coast teams need a little extra love. We'll be right back.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Congrats to this week's Average Joe contest winner, Gary Warner. 4 contestants this week went a perfect 7-0. But remember, tiebreakers come down to your best bet of the week, followed by the best NFL record that week. The contest is free to enter, and every week you can win cash prizes, plus quarterly prizes like a trip to Vegas with a Circle Resort stay, and even a guest appearance on a VSiN show. You can enter anytime this season at vsin.com/Joe. That's vsin.com/Joe. You're no average Joe, JVT.
Thank you. Yeah, shout out to, I don't know if this is him and or her and whatnot, but Gooba Betts during the week had sent us his sheet, and he went 7-0 as well. So one of the
Heck yes.
the many that you had noted. So good job.
Fantastic. Well done. I did want to follow up. We had a really good conversation on the Giants last segment with Carl Banks, won 2 Super Bowls with the Giants back in the day. He's now part of their radio broadcast crew. And he talked about Abdul Carter not being utilized necessarily the right way. And when we came off the air after I gave the odds for Abdul Carter, what did you say?
No, he shouldn't be favored to win Rookie of the Year, Defensive Rookie of the Year. This is a topic I've covered on this show already before, if you remember, but you don't listen to me talk, so that's fine. But I will say, if you go to Pod
to
the Futures.
Here I am trying to set you up, and you just have to go and, all right.
We discussed this on Pod to the Futures.
Our audience changes every day and every 15 minutes.
That's a good point.
Or less.
That's a very good point.
So.
It's actually a very strong broadcasting point if you had actually remembered. Anyway, Abdul Carter should not be favored. I thought he had a great answer about this, which was, look, you got some injuries along the interior. You're probably using him in different ways, especially like having him rush for the interior against bigger guards, things like that. So he's not able to put up some of the numbers that you would expect of a top-tier edge rusher that was drafted where he was drafted. So all this to be said, I don't think he should be favored. He hasn't put up the numbers. The only reason why he is he's a position of glamour, the defensive end edge rusher, and, of course, he plays for the New York Giants. But if you look at these other pieces, and this actually ties into a bit of news we just got about about 15 minutes ago, there's many different options in this NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year market to look at. One such option, outside of Carson Schlesinger, who is the guy that I have tied my wagon to.
Who's 10-1 now?
10-1 now, yeah. Jahad Campbell, the rookie linebacker for the Philadelphia Eagles, did not practice today. He does not have his helmet. That was just reported about 20 minutes ago as media members are out there. So keep an eye on that. But go look at Campbell's numbers as well. He's been great. He's fifth in terms of snaps, but he's only like 4 snaps behind the 5 guys that are all tied together for total snaps on the team or whatever. He's pretty much an every down backer who has been asked to do a lot as a rookie, and he has played the part as well. So guys like Campbell, Schlesinger, those are the dudes I think you should be looking at to bet in this market. And I think Carter is a little bit of a faux favorite at the top of that board, if you will.
Assuming you want nothing to do with anything Travis Hunter on either side of the ball?
I mean, so Mitch made a good point, again, on Pod to the Futures, where if you looked at his snaps, it's one game. But this was the game where you saw more snaps on defense than it was on offense. And I think maybe there's a reality in which Travis Hunter the Jags are finally starting to, because I think we talked about this yesterday, or maybe we talked about it off the air, about like, what is a situational corner? What is that? What are you going to do? What value do you get from going out there and saying, cover this drag route on a third down and then get back out of the game? It's on an every down basis in which you create your value as a cornerback, I would assume. So I think it makes more sense. And I do remember reading, like, hey, if there's a spot where he should, if you're going to put him into a box and say this is where he should play, corner was stronger. But I know that Dion told you, sorry, Coach Prime, that he was probably being misused.
So that's what I was going to say is I think it's really interesting because myself, and I don't think this is a new thought, a lot of people have thought it would make so much sense for him to develop into a shutdown corner and then, have a package on offense or continue to work himself in as a receiver in spot moments more on that way. Dion actually told me this week and was adamant about it, looked us dead in the face in our meetings and said they are not using Travis Hunter correctly, and there is no reason that he should not be the focal point of that offense. And I know, obviously, having worked with Travis and known him as long as he has and coached him as long as he has, he thinks very, very highly of him. But he all but said you don't trade up and draft him and give up what you draft him for him to be utilized the way that he is being utilized. He said you are using him wrong. So 1 week,
1 game, and you're on a first-name basis with him, huh?
Coach Sanders, Coach Prime.
Yeah, Coach Prime.
Whatever you want to be called.
All last week it was Coach.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's actually in the game notes that it says, like, Coach Dion, Prime. In quotes, Prime.
There you go.
Sanders. So there you go. Speaking of, Colorado is taking on BYU this week. That's one of a handful of different West Coast games that are going on. The big noon kickoff this week, USC at Illinois, a massive game. Do you want to start there? And I know there are a handful of games that you want to get into.
Yeah, I mean, the USC-Illinois game carries the most weight, although I think you can make a strong argument that SDSU and NIU is very big, as is Washington State and Colorado State.
I was actually at a SDSU home game when I was in college when NIU upset them. Never forget. Go on.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I know that I thought the notes
it was NIU.
I don't think it was because the notes I read said they were 6-0 against
Illinois.
Yeah, because they're 6-0 against Northern Illinois.
Maybe it was
according
Eastern
to
Illinois then.
San Diego State. So
I was drinking a couple of beverages.
I was going to say I think we know exactly what you were doing that day.
Game, so.
Regardless, USC Illinois carries the most weight. So let's go there. We should note that there are a ton of injuries that are listed for Illinois, but it sounds like it's mostly good news. Matthew Bailey, concussion protocol. Brett Bielema told the media I think he's going to get cleared later this week. Ben Clausen missed the first 4 games. He's also a defensive back. He's going to return this week. Caleb Patterson, I'll let you guess what position, defensive back. X-rays were negative. He allegedly returned to practice on Tuesday. Torrey Cox, another defensive back. He also returned to practice on Tuesday. You can also kind of see why maybe this went askew against Indiana last week. The defensive backfield was trashed. Even Bielema said we were down to our last defensive back. If one more went down, I don't know what we were going to do. So a little bit healthier there. I think my real question is, I've kind of harped on this a little bit, and I think it's gotten a little bit better because I keep saying, like, hey, USC kind of giving up some explosives, did it against Purdue, did it in the early games, didn't really give it up against Michigan State. They did have a 75-yard and a 42-yard touchdown last week, but the 75-yarder was the final drive for Michigan State that got them inside of the number. So the defense has been generally okay. 50th percentile on explosive play rate allowed for USC. The question just becomes, can Illinois actually kind of pick at that scab, if you will? I don't know if that's the case. My initial thought says, I don't want to overreact too much to Illinois in the way they got beat down against Indiana. Let me take 7 with the Illini at home. But looking at more of their offensive numbers, this is a pretty vanilla offense. Mm-hmm. There's not really much going on that pops out to you when you look at some of their metrics. And I just ask, can they keep up with USC? Because I think USC is going to get theirs.
The offense, you listed all the numbers. Yeah. USC's offense is as legit as it comes right now, and we've talked a lot about Jaden Mayava today, but 9 passing touchdowns, 4 rushing, no picks. Even the turnover-worthy plays have been held to just that one game. But it was a road game at Purdue, and road games have kind of been the chink in the armor for Lincoln Riley-led USC teams to this point. They're 3-10 against the spread as a road favorite against Riley, 3rd worst number in FBS. They didn't cover the spread against Purdue in that spot 2 weeks ago, albeit a much bigger number. 5-11 ATS on the road in general. That record, 131st of 136 teams in college football since Riley took over the job. So on the road has been an issue for USC historically in this tenure.
Yep. So I go ahead.
I was just going to say one thing. I don't usually look at college football props often, but I think a Mekhi Lemon prop could be very interesting this week for USC because you talk about like the DB issues that they've had. Xavier Scott specifically, who's their slot corner, is going to be out probably for the entirety of the season. I think that opens up a very clear advantage for Mekhi Lemon, who's already been Jaden Mayava's go-to guy to potentially go off in this game.
Okay, I like it. I have nothing to add to this one.
Okay, any other games? Let's go through. If you want to hit SDSU, NIU, do it.
Yeah, well, I do because so this is you were talking about, hey, the Cal game and what do we do with Cal? To me, I think it's more interesting what we do with San Diego State. So they close.
It was Eastern Illinois, by the way.
Yeah,
I'm looking it up. It was a blowout.
They close as 14-point underdogs at home to Cal. Smoke them. And now here they go on the road against Northern Illinois, and they're 2.5-point road favorites. I texted our boy Adam Burke this morning just to get an idea. I was like, hey, what do you make this number? He only makes it San Diego State -0.5. So there's a little bit of an edge there in the direction of San Diego State. But that to me is just this situation. And Northern Illinois, their offense is horrendous. If you look at what they've done to this point, just over 4.2 yards per play, 4.2 yards per play. Just under 4 yards per rush. They're averaging 12.7 points per game. In success rate and EPA metrics, the Huskies rank no higher than 126th in the country. Their offense has been awful. I'm just morbidly curious about this massive role reversal for San Diego State. The market thought they were so bad that they should be catching two touchdowns back at the snap. And now here they are going out on the road to Northern Illinois as a road favorite?
Yeah.
That to me... I am I'm put it this way. You give me 3, I'm in on Northern Illinois. I understand all the offense, how bad it's been. If I get that full 3 by the time we get to Saturday, Huskies are on the card.
You already heard my whole argument for Cal.
Yeah.
So, I feel exactly the same way with you. I think it was a very fugazi 34-0 win for them, and this is a completely different role to your point. 45 seconds, hit another one if you can.
Okay, real quick, we should just note that Washington State, Colorado State, we have a change of quarterback for the Rams. It's finally happened. Braden Fowler-Nicolosi got benched last game against UTSA. He has not been good on the season. 54% completion, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, 6 yards per attempt. So now we get Jackson Brossois that comes in here. Against UTSA, had 2 drives, led back-to-back touchdowns. Stat line wasn't great, 10-13, 78 yards, a touchdown, 6 yards per attempt on an average depth of target of 3.8. But this is a team that got an under on a win total on, and I don't mind seeing that this has been an influx of the most important position.
So Stormy, junior year in college at San Diego State, a young Jimmy Garoppolo with Eastern Illinois. For those were 361 yards, 3 touchdowns, and his defense got 5 interceptions.
And you remembered none
for him.
of it.
And I remembered that I went to a game that involved a directional Illinois. We'll be back.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, Sirius XM Channel 158, YouTube TV, the VSiN Watch app, any of our great affiliates across the country. We appreciate you hanging out with us. I'm Stormy Buonantony. He's Jonathan Von Tobel. And I said in the commercial break, I will not complain about my schedule anymore after learning about the slate that our good friend Taylor Zarzour, who joins us here on the Progressive Guest Line, will have upcoming. So out there at Bethpage Black for the Ryder Cup, which will get underway on Friday, Thursday afternoon, the first 4 matches will be announced. Then he is headed out to Vanderbilt to call Utah State at Vandy, and then on Sunday has the Titans game. So, Taylor, are you mentally anxious about all that's to come, or are you just ready to roll through?
What would 12-year-old Taylor say, Stormy? I mean, this is awesome. I mean, come on. This is it's a dream come true to get to do these things. I am admittedly a little nervous about planes being on time, but you know what? It'll all work out, and this will be the craziest week of all of them. But I just absolutely love the Ryder Cup. I think there's nothing like it in golf, and there's very little like it in all of sports. The passion and the energy that surrounds this event, you don't typically get that in a golf tournament. It's just such an individualistic sport, and it's usually very quiet, and there's none of that here. And you combine that with the most passionate, area maybe for sports in New York. It's just it's something unlike anything else. So I'm very excited about that. And then we'll move on to the undefeated Commodores in Nashville, and then we'll move on to somebody, hopefully, winning their first game on Sunday between the Titans and the Texans.
All right, let's start with this Ryder Cup, though. Team USA, the favorite to lift the trophy, minus $1.50. Should the Americans be favored here? Are they the better squad?
You know, I think that obviously, as you guys talk about all the time, it's obvious where public money goes and public trust goes. But if we were just breaking down the two rosters, I would give the edge to the European team. I think this is the deepest team they've ever had. 11 of their 12 players were on the team 2 years ago that dominated in Rome. The only difference is Rasmus Højgaard is playing instead of his twin brother Nikolai. And if Nikolai snuck on the course, I don't think anybody would know because they're identical twins. They're probably going to put out the same pairings that they put out 2 years ago. You're probably going to see a lot of the same combinations that were successful 2 years ago. I think that this is an extraordinarily good team. And if you wanted to say it's the best team Europe's ever had, I wouldn't argue with you. Having said all of that, Keegan Bradley has an incredible team to his own right, and he has the best player in the world. Unequivocally, Scotty Scheffler is playing the best golf, and the last 4 years has been the best player on the planet. And certainly you take the rest of the United States world rankings, it's a formidable team. The home field advantage that they have is worth a lot. And if you look back over the course of the past decade, home soil means everything in this event. So having said all of that, I would give the United States a slight edge. So I understand why they're favored. But if this was at a neutral site, absolutely Europe should be favored.
When you look at those Ryder Cup odds, USA minus 150, Europe plus 170, and then the draw, the tie, 10-1. In the just to lift the trophy odds, Europe available there at plus 120. But that is a strong statement from you there, Taylor. And then we also wanted to ask you about the top point scorer. You mentioned the best player in the world, Scotty Scheffler, the rightful favorite in this spot at 3-1. But are there any other names you think could be worth targeting as the top point scorer come Ryder Cup?
Well, just look, Stormy, at Jon Rahm and what he did at Whistling Straits in Wisconsin. They lost 19-9. The Europeans did, absolutely dominated in that event. And he had, you're going to have to confirm this, but he had at least a third of the points. He might have, I think he had 3.5 of the 9 points that Europe had 2 or 4 years ago. And then 2 years ago, he went undefeated when he played in Italy. He has just been exceptional in Ryder Cups. He was great in Paris, beat Tiger Woods in singles on Sunday back in 2018. Ever since he's become a professional player, he's just lived for this event. He would be the guy I would look for at Europe. Now, Rory McIlroy has been terrific. So is Tommy Fleetwood. They have a number of great players that have gained a lot of points to their team. But Jon Rahm, just no matter where the event is and no matter what his team does, he's always exceptional. So I would look at him in terms of the top points getter for Europe.
Taylor, what about debutantes in this event? The guys who are playing it in their first time, generally, how do they perform?
Well, it's usually they really feel the nerves, especially if you're a player on the road. Like Rasmus Højgaard, I would stay away from him because he's a rookie. He's the only rookie for Europe. But the United States has a bunch of them on their team, 4 of them. And Russell Henley would be the guy I would look at that's the rookie that I think could fare the best. Russell most likely will be paired with Scotty Scheffler 2, 3, 4 times in this event. He plays a very similar type of game, hits a lot of fairways and greens, a very accurate player, and it doesn't seem like he gets that rattled. I would look at him as the rookie that could do the best in terms of the United States.
Favorite to win, or should be a top debutante scorer at least. Favorite Russell Henley plus 180.
Taylor Zarzour, Sirius XM PGA Radio, also calls college football and many things for ESPN, and is the Titans' lead broadcaster, which is where I want to go next to the NFL here, Taylor, because we got the news yesterday that Brian Callahan is handing play calling duties off to quarterbacks coach Bo Hardegree this week. The 0-3 start for the Titans. Cam Ward, their number 1 overall pick, trying to work him in. How significant of a change is this, you think, for Tennessee?
I don't think it's that big of a deal, Stormy, because Bo and Brian are best friends, and they've worked together in a number of different spots. And every time that Brian Callahan is calling a play in practice, Bo Hardegree is right there in his ear, and you can tell they're very much on the same page of what play call is going to be next. And Hardegree and Cam Ward are very close. So I think that just about the same plays are going to be called throughout the game. I think the big key here is Brian Callahan managing the entire team. And that's what I think this move was all about, being able to handle in-game situations a little bit better and not think about the next play that's going to be called. And then also just be in charge of the entire team. I think Callahan will work harder on that. The big key to me, not just in this game, but in the weeks to come for Cam Ward, who absolutely looks like the guy they wanted him to be with the first pick, is getting rid of the football quicker. He's taken too many sacks, holding on to the ball too long. But once he gets rid of it, he's made some great things happen. He has a tremendous amount of zip on the ball. He's very good at reading defenses and preparing for the opposition. He's a dream to coach. He's a great teammate. But he's got to get rid of the football quicker, and I expect him to do that. He better against the Houston Texans on Sunday.
Mm-hmm. Taylor, has the game management stuff from Callahan been a topic out there? Stormy and I were on the desk last Sunday watching him settle for consecutive 60-yard field goals. Yeah. He actually had a moment in the Colts game last year, I'm sure you remember, where he punts it away with like 2 minutes left, and they really never get the ball back and lose that game. Has that been a topic of conversation? Do you think those are the moments that you're talking about in terms of managing the team?
Yeah, just before the half against Denver and just before the half against the Colts this past week are certainly some that I'm sure he'd like to have back. And he has said as much publicly, whether it's been on our coach's show or in the media, that those are moments, you can play the guessing game, and he certainly would like to have those back. But I think the hardest thing for him is he's dealing with a roster, guys, that is going through a hard reset. And in those situations when you know that you don't have a full deck yet, I think that sort of comes into play when you make those choices at the end of the half, as you're trying to think of what sort of roster you currently have. And it's frustrating for Titans fans because they've gone through losing seasons the last 3 years. Their fans are tired. They want to win. But the truth is, the new general manager, Mike Borgonzi, their new quarterback, Cam Ward, their second-year coach, Brian Callahan, they're going through a hard reset here. And they knew that they're going to have to build a team through the draft, and it's going to take time before it turns into a championship contender. And so they're not going to skip any steps. And if that means at the end of the season they still are one of the first teams to make a pick in April's draft, so be it. They need a couple of draft cycles before they're going to be ready to compete at the top of the division or at the top of the AFC. And I know, again, that can be frustrating for people, but I think that's the right way to go about building a team.
Taylor, real quick, just about 30 seconds with you. How do you think that Tennessee defensively will stack up with Houston? Can they take advantage of that weak offensive line?
Oh, boy, they're going to try. Jeffrey Simmons is off to a great start, Stormy. He's a 3-time Pro Bowler, and he's playing at a very high level so far this year. He is going to have to force a turnover, do something to rattle C.J. Stroud and that offense that's clearly not operating at the same level it has the last few years. So, look, the Titans created 5 turnovers in the first 2 games. They're going to have to win the turnover battle on Sunday if they want to come out with their first victory.
Taylor, you're awesome. Thank you for this. The rest can come on Monday, but have an awesome weekend.
Thank you, my friends. Thanks, Stormy. It's great to talk to you. Take care.
Appreciate you. It's Taylor Zarzour again, out there at Bethpage Black right now, getting set for the Ryder Cup for PGA Tour Radio on Sirius XM, and then headed out to Vandy in Nashville as Vanderbilt hosts Utah State. That'll be on SEC Network Saturday afternoon, and then Sunday right back out there in Houston. The Tennessee Titans, by the way, getting 7 in that spot at Houston. Low total as expected, 38.5. We're going to step aside when we come back, rounding out the day here on this Wednesday edition of Money Moves, Best Bets, and a little more football conversation on the way.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
I wish there would have been somebody in the sportsbook just now to witness.
No context whatsoever to what just happened.
Oh,
why is that man lashing out at that lovely young lady?
It's just absolutely
not understanding how irritating you can be.
Going like this. I mean, what? Words hurt. My goodness. JVT, Stormy, Buonantony with you as we wrap up this Wednesday edition of Money Moves. Thanks for hanging out with us. Remember, too, if you did miss any of the program today, you can always download in podcast form wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe. Make sure that you don't miss a minute of Money Moves each and every day. We did have a little bit of sound that we wanted to play for you, and you brought this to my attention. Leave it to Mike Florio to always have something about gambling in his mouth. And he had another very interesting take coming out of the Rams-Eagles game, which was a little bit unexpected. So let's take a listen here first and foremost.
And here's the reality. This is the direct result of the NFL going from hating and shunning anything to do with gambling to jumping right in bed and loading the pockets. They're the guy in the old game show where you go into the booth where the money's flying everywhere. Yeah. They're just grabbing as many dollars as they can while it's there. But yeah, we're all aware now of the point spread. We're all aware of the ramifications. And how many millions of dollars changed hands because Jordan Davis decided to do not the smart thing. The smart thing, the game's over. Just fall down. You got the win. Because in theory, somebody comes up from behind, does the Don Beebe to Leon Lett, the ball goes out, the Rams take it the other way. The smart thing to do is go down. He runs it in for a touchdown. The Eagles cover. Uh-oh. And it was perfectly legitimate, but when you open Pandora's box, this is the kind of stuff that flies out, and people are aware of this. So it's just part of the stuff the NFL needs to be concerned about. And sometimes I wonder, Dan, are they as concerned as they should be? They realized, you know what? We've hated this. We fought against it. If it's going to be inevitable, let's turn it into a revenue stream. And they've turned it into a massive revenue stream.
All right, so cut out of that.
Layers to this.
Yeah, and cut out of that clip, too, is at the end of where he's talking with Dan Patrick. He says that the owners are now the book, or I think he used another term. What was it? There was another term.
No, he says in bed with, because they can have ownership in sports books.
Yes, he called them the house. He said the owners are the house now. And what it references, as Stormy just said, is they can own up to 5% of these sports betting companies. As he also tells Dan Patrick, we don't know. We don't know who's in bed with it. We don't know who owns it. The NFL won't tell us. But I'm a capitalist. It's perfectly legitimate. So he implies that it's illegitimate and then says it's legitimate. Correct. He also very clearly, and look, Florio's got a legal background. He knows what he's doing here. He knows that he's very clearly somewhat, wink, wink, that they're the house now, and you get this one thing that's exchanging of millions of dollars and the final play that generally shouldn't happen. You know what you're implying. You're smart enough to realize what you're implying. But then every time he backs it up with either it was legitimate, which was the cover and the result, or I'm a capitalist. I feel like, then what are we complaining about? I would just, it goes back to, we've had this conversation before of people who, like, if somebody doesn't like me, I would respect you way more if you came up to me and tell me, man, I don't like you. Just tell me that. That's great. Then we can work out whatever this is, or we can just leave each other alone. It's the same thing here. Florio should, I know he's kind of said it, but he's always trying to find some sort of underhanded thing when it comes to gambling, and it is a vice and all the. Just say you don't like it and you like to complain about it, because even in that clip, he has nothing legitimate to complain about. What's Pandora's box? What is he talking about?
It was funny too, because Dan Patrick didn't even get the question out, and he goes, "I know where you're going with this."
Right.
And then the whole conversation though about what is a crazy fluke thing to begin with, right? That this field goal attempt gets blocked, and then one of the biggest guys on the field picks it up and doesn't want to put the ball down and runs to the other.
Mm-hmm.
What about that could have been a fix to begin with? But he implies as if, this is just another one of those things, and this, look at all the money that's changing hands. But again, to your point, it's completely legitimate because it was. Yeah. It's talking just to talk. And talking poorly about gambling because you don't like it isn't a reason.
Right. It's BSing. It's, when you lie, you got to know the truth, but he doesn't know the truth. He's not concerning himself with the truth. When you BS, you just got to talk so that it fits your bottom line.
He can't handle the truth.
Right. It's so weird. It's so dumb. What movie is that from? I don't know what that's from.
A Few Good Men.
Oh, okay, yeah. Is that the one where Cuba Gooding Jr. is
Dave
like
Ross's
a deep sea diver?
movie, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm right. Dave Ross's favorite movie. There we go. Let's shift gears to something a little bit more fun.
What's the Cuba Gooding Jr. movie?
We didn't
Let me know.
Get Men of Honor.
Thank you. Okay.
We didn't get into as many of the West Coast Bias games as we wanted to. So today, West Coast Bias, this continuation, is presented by GBank, the official bank of VSiN. Yeah. And right now, you can earn $50 in cashback rewards once you're approved. And your account is open with a new GBank Visa Signature card. Well, most credit cards treat sportsbook and gaming transactions as cash advances, even when it's your own money. GBank treats them as regular purchases. That means no cash advance fees, saves you 3 to 5% on every deposit. Plus, you'll earn 1% cash back on all eligible sportsbook and gaming transactions, 2% cash back on everything else you buy. You can apply now at vsin.com/GBank. So a couple games we already did hit on. If you want to go back on the Money Moves podcast, USC, Illinois, SDSU, NIU. You gave some injury updates for Washington State, Colorado State. Where do you want to go next?
Let's see. So let's be clear. Washington State, Colorado State is a benching. It is not an injury. Braden Fowler Nicolosi has been benched. So I wanted to talk. I brought this up to Adam. It was very quickly yesterday, but there was a reason to it. San Jose State and Stanford. So the Spartans are shaping up to be maybe one of the more disappointing teams from a betting perspective, potentially. They're off to a pretty tough start. They're 1-2 straight up. They're 1-2 ATS. Obviously, they lose the game outright to Central Michigan to start the year, get beat up by Texas, actually cover that number. But it just has not been great for San Jose State. Now they go on the road to take on Stanford. But really quietly, and I wanted to put some context behind what we were talking about yesterday, I mentioned that I was like, I don't know, Walker Egan, not a really great quarterback. 52% completion, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 7 turnover-worthy plays to this point of the season for Walker Egan. That's a turnover-worthy play rate of just under 6% at 5.9. Only 6.6 yards per attempt. Unlike some of these other quarterbacks in the country, Walker Egan does not provide you with any sense of rushing ability. You don't have to account for him in that regard. So if he is going to play at this level, an abhorrent, disgusting level of quarterback play that the Spartans have gotten up to this point, I think they're in a bad spot here on the road against Stanford. We'll see how bad it actually is for this team, but their offenses look really bad, Stormy, and the quarterback play has been abysmal. Now you got to go on the road to take on the Stanford team, which, look, you can say what you want about how bad they've been. They beat the crap out of Boston College, if I remember correctly. It was a 30-20 final. And then, of course, with the worst statistical quarterback performance you'll see in a long time out in Hawaii, almost won the game against the Rainbow Warriors. I just don't like this Spartans team. It was one point of contention throughout the year, or excuse me, throughout the offseason. It was a team that I wrote about where it's just like, look, I don't get it when I wrote the Mountain West Guide for the college football betting guide. And right now it seems to be coming to fruition that this team is out to sea when it comes to this offense. It's not been good.
Yeah, well, and I know on the other side for Stanford, Ben Goldbrinson isn't exactly something to write home about, but San Jose State's defense hasn't exactly been able to get stops either. Yep. So I think both parts of that kind of match up with your thought process here. One game we didn't talk about that I do think is really interesting is the Friday night game coming up at Arizona State. Ooh. TCU, ASU going head-to-head. Fun quarterbacks here, Josh Hoover and Sam Leavitt. Hoover, by the way, now 18-1 in the Heisman Trophy market with how good that offense has been. Won their first 3 games. Offensively, Hoover's got some legit weapons, too. 10th in the nation in PFF's receiving grade. Wide receivers, 15th. Should be a good little battle, actually, with ASU's corners. But this is a very interesting game, and we're out from that 2.5 to 3 now with people buying in on the Sun Devils.
So I'll lean a little bit more on you with this Arizona State team because you did get to see them up close. But would you say that these two teams are equals to one another? Would you give TCU a slight edge? I've been surprised by TCU's some of the defensive metrics for them have been a lot more solid than I thought when I started to look at this, especially against the run. They've been a little bit better than I thought they were.
Well, so that's something that I actually think is going to be a really interesting matchup in this game because the biggest question around ASU football coming into this year is how are they going to be able to replace Cam Scattaboo, right? They've actually been running the ball pretty efficiently. They just weren't doing it enough, and we finally saw them do that this past week. Marcus Arroyo said, okay, we know this is a weakness in this defense. Let's take advantage of it. Rush for 179 yards. Raleek Brown and Sam Leavitt's legs both doing the bulk of that work. I'm still surprised we haven't seen as much Kanye Udoh this year after all of the talk about him coming in. But I think that can be a very interesting back and forth. The more I dug into this game, the more I do think the market is correct in leaning toward ASU at home. I also like the over. Like, I could see this being a game that's played in the 60s. Both of these offenses have a great capability to score.
Do you think Hoover can actually win the Heisman?
No.
Is it because you don't think he's going to be good enough, or they're
East
just
Coast bias? No,
yeah. It's good.
But
keep it going.
I mean, I don't think that the numbers necessarily will be eye-popping enough. Although, I mean, he's very talented, and will they win the games that they need to be in that position to contend for a Big 12 title? I'm not sure.
Yeah. I mean, this conference as a whole, too, again, we keep waiting for it to cannibalize itself, but maybe not. I mean, we're still waiting to see who the, I guess we'll call them number 2 team outside of Texas Tech, who seems to be like the best team in the conference. But TCU could totally do it, and this is going to be essentially an eliminator game for both of these teams in this conference race.
I'm very curious to see, and I know we talked about it very, very briefly on Monday, but the Utah bounce back at West Virginia this week and what that looks like, and is Devin Dampier healthy?
Yeah, well, we should have spent more time on that.
Yeah, maybe tomorrow.
The fact that he didn't pop up in the injury report, then after the game, you're like, oh, yeah, no, he was hurt.
Well, he wasn't in danger of playing. Yeah, but he was injured and missed practice. So, yes, definitely. I mean, that would have changed our thought process on that game, certainly. So maybe that's something we discuss a little bit more tomorrow. That's a wrap for us, though. Thanks for hanging out with us. Coming up next, Mitch and Pauly holding it down. Follow the money for the next 3 hours.